Hi everyone, and welcome back to Cooking in Pink Boots. And for this recipe, you're going to want to start out with a good sponge cake or a good pound cake. So I'm making my own homemade sponge cake. And I was also able to make a loaf, so I'm going to use this because it's much thicker to make my lateza. Alright, now to get started with my lateza filling, I'm going to start out with pouring in 2 cans of evaporated milk. Now, to every 12-ounce can, I'm going to add a quarter of the way of water. And you want to do it in both cans just to get out whatever leftover milk. That's the way I was taught. This is my mom's recipe of how she makes lateza. And it's a little different, but I love it. So that's a quart of water in here. And right now I'm just going to whisk in my sugar. Put that in there. And by the way, that was 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Now, how much sugar you put really depends too on the cake that you're using. If I was going to use a Sourly pound cake as my base, I would, it's really sweet, so I would go with 2/3 of a cup of sugar. But because I am using a sponge cake, which is a little less sweet than the Sourly pound cake, I'm going a little bit sweeter, which is 3/4 of a cup of sugar. And I'm also putting half of a 1-ounce box of sugar-free vanilla pudding. Like I said, this is my mom's recipe, and it's very good. I love it. Now, my pot is cold. My stove is off right now. I'm just getting all these ingredients dissolved. Now, if you don't have the pudding mix, that is totally fine. That's our traditional way of doing it anyways. But because I have the pudding mix in there, I'm going to go with 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, without the vanilla pudding, I would go with 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Wonderful thing about this recipe, it can all be done in one pot. Just put it in there. And I'm going to go a pinch of sea salt. And when I say a pinch, to me a pinch means like 1/4 of a teaspoon. All right, now here I am preparing and this is before I turn on the heat, my cornstarch slurry. And that is 1/4 of a cup of cornstarch plus 1 tablespoon. And to that, I had added 1/4 of a cup of water. Now, if it's still too hard to mix, you can add a tablespoon of water at a time. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to go with another tablespoon of water here. As you can see, it's still a little bit too thick. And there we go. That did it. So that is 1/4 of a cup plus 1 tablespoon of cornstarch to 1/4 of a cup plus 1 tablespoon of water. All right, now that I had turned my heat on to medium, I'm going to go ahead and take 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter and drop it right in there and let that melt down. And here I have 2 egg yolks. I base it on every can is 1 egg yolk. Yeah, but we're not going to drop this in just like that. We don't want this chance scrambling our eggs. So what we're going to do is we're going to temp it by pouring a little bit of the mixture, our milk mixture. Once it starts to boil, we're going to pour a little bit of that into the egg mixture, and then as soon as it reaches a warm temp, we're going to drop it in. Right now here, I made a homemade sponge cake for my lateza. Now I'm not going to cut it yet until this is done and nice and cold. Now you can go ahead and cut your cake and have it prepared in the pan for when the pudding's ready. But I just like to keep it intact to prevent drying out. So once my lateza is done and it sits to cool, I'm going to go ahead and slice my cake. It's really simple, just to slice it and then put it right into our dish. All right, I still got my mixture on medium. You want to keep stirring this. You don't want the bottom to burn because it's just not gonna be right. Now once that is about to boil, it's not boiled yet, but it's about to, go ahead and just pull some out and use that to temp my eggs slowly. Just add that in there. We don't want to shock our eggs and cause them to scramble. Just a little bit more. All right, that looks good. Now just drizzle that right in. That egg yolk is going to give it a nice custardy taste. I like that. All right, and looks like it's right about ready to boil. Once I start seeing a couple of bubbles popping up, I'm going to go ahead and slowly pour my cornstarch mixture right in there. I'm going to get that to boil, and it's going to thicken up to our pudding. And don't stop whisking. Do not turn your back on this. And be sure to get all the sides of the pot. And there we go. That's how thick we want it. When we shut that heat off. And I'm going to continue to mix just for about another minute or so. Be sure we got everything there. I'm going to move it from the heat. I'm just going to give it about 15 minutes to cool down. We don't want it to cool to set. We just want it to cool a little bit so it doesn't affect our cake when we pour it in. Now here I'm going to be using a 9x13 cake dish. And this is that sponge cake I made the other day. Guys, look at this. This is a day after. Look at that. Still nice and spongy. All right, I'm just move aside that first slice. Now with Letiza, we want the slices kind of thin, not too thin, but kind of thin, something like that. Homemade sponge cake is the best with Letiza. I like the whole sour lee, but yeah, I kind of prefer the texture of sponge cake. And here we have it, guys. My sliced sponge cake is ready to be covered in this Letiza filling or Letiza topping. I'll give it one more whisk just to break it up because it did sit a little bit longer than I thought it would. Mom pours it right in the middle, and it has one of us kind of like spread it out, but it's just me today. Right now for this next step, I would say it is totally optional, but I have not seen a Letiza without it. Maybe there is some people out there who will eat it without cinnamon. I'm not one of those people. Sprinkle it just like that. Now I have recipes from here to eternity. Dessert recipes, cakes, pies, puddings, but this is and always will be my favorite, my real favorite, guys. My mom's Chamorro Letiza. And there we go, Chamorro Letiza. Our pudding had been sitting for about 20 minutes. It's still warm. You can put this in the refrigerator and good cold, hot, doesn't matter. Let's try this out. As good as ever. So good. I better stop. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I really do hope you enjoyed today's video. And please don't forget to like and subscribe for more upcoming food adventures with me, Charlene, from right here in my kitchen, where every day I'm cooking in pink boots.